lately it's been the Jared Goff part of the equation. He has been portrayed as a victim, that it's not fair that the Rams traded him away, and he made some comments here. I don't know if you heard what he had to say. Maybe not. I'll give you the quote. It's not a long quote. Jared Goff, speaking about the trade, told state-sponsored NFL media, quote, of his deal of the lines. He said, quote, "I'm just excited to be somewhere that I know wants me and appreciates me," close quote. Shots fired. That's a haymaker right to the chin. The chinny chin of Sean McVay. Now, I keep going back with amazement that there are members of the football media that are painting Jared Goff as a victim in this, and it could not be further from the truth. So let us discuss. Do the Detroit Lions really want and appreciate Jared Goff? All right, here's how I'm going to answer it. The Lions wanted and appreciated Jared Goff in this trade as much as a child appreciates when their parents give them a plate of broccoli, right? You're like, well, I really want and appreciate that. No, you don't. You don't. You don't want that at all. Now, my view, you've got performance review, white elephant, and rustic walking bridge, and we will connect all of these things together. Now, first of all, the Rams did not do Jared Goff dirty. With all due apologies to the jock sniffers, get a grip, all right? Get a grip. Wipe your nose off. You got a little spot there. This is not heartbreaking. It's not even disrespectful. Right? The Rams paid Jared Goff a ton of money. They made a mistake. He was the beneficiary of their negligence as a front office. But stop with the hyperbole. Like, I am genuinely surprised that Jared Goff had this many supporters left, unless these are just people that are looking for something to grasp onto, and they don't really care about Jared Goff. They just want something to be outraged about. Like, my theory is that many of these sycophants are just part of the continually offended pearl-clutching mob. And it's all walks of life, but in sports, the fun bunch, they really are the fun bunch. They run around looking for things to be offended about. Oh, I can't believe you traded Jared Goff after you gave him the biggest contract in NFL history. This is a teachable moment. Jared Goff, listen very closly here. For those of you in the back of the room, Jared Goff was underperforming at his job. And when you're not carrying your weight at your job, your employer is going to get rid of you. That's how life works, right? You're not guaranteed to keep your job if you're not producing. And this is actually a good thing, even in the wacky, cartoonish world of pro football. Right? Even when you get the big contract, at least with the Rams, other teams continue to employ incompetent stooges. I'm talking about you, Philadelphia, with Carson Wentz. And we go down the list of the other quarterbacks that got big contracts that teams feel like they're stuck with. The Rams don't feel that way. But think of this as a regular working stiff. I have a fun job. I have a good job. But even I, from time to time, usually once a year, I have what's called a performance review. And in this case, Jared Goff had a performance review. And the Rams, they had put together a paper trail of issues to justify trading Jared Goff. Specifically, the medley of mistakes. Over the past 2 seasons, Jared Goff ranked second in the NFL with 38 turnovers. Sean McVay chose to start an undrafted free agent, John Wolford, in that wild card playoff game against Seattle. Remember, Wolford got hurt, and so Goff came in and played, but the plan was for Goff not to play the game at all, even though Goff said he was ready to play and had been cleared to play. The Rams, they decided, we want to go with the other guy. We don't want to play you. We want to go with the other guy. And after the Packer game, when asked if Jared Goff was his quarterback, remember Sean McVay said, yeah, he's our quarterback right now. And then the GM, Les Snead, piggybacked on that, did not offer a vote of confidence for Jared Goff either. This just happened a few days ago, saying that the big contract, anything can be done, and he's my quarterback right now, and in a cap-based system, moves can be made. People sneered at that, but it turns out Les Snead was not lying. Moves could be made. All you have to do is get the Lions involved in this. But Jared Goff has nobody to blame but himself. He was given an opportunity with a great offensive coach and talented players around him, and he continued to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, even with the coach holding his hand, right? Holding his hand and walking down the aisle with him, he still was a stumble bum. All right, second point. As for Jared Goff saying he's excited to be somewhere that he knows, wants, and appreciates him, this is his attempt at a shot at Sean McVay. Doesn't work. It's comedy gold, right? He does not believe this. If he does believe this, by off chance he does, then Jared Goff is being led down the garden path, right? Because, be very clear here, of all the quarterbacks that are going to change teams, and there are a bunch that are going to change teams, the great quarterback migration of 2021 is underway. Jared Goff is the white elephant gift on the trade market. It is very straightforward here. He is the unwanted booby prize that you try to avoid at all costs. He's the gag gift. Jared Goff is the gag gift. And as a result, the Lions put a huge tariff on the head of Jared Goff. If the Rams had their druthers, they would have loved to have traded Jared Goff and not had to throw in a couple of extra first-round picks to make the trade happen. And the Lions were that excited, right, and really appreciate Jared Goff, then why did they need all those extra draft picks? That's the price on the head of Jared Goff. The Rams were willing to meet that export tax, and that got the deal consummated. It wasn't about Jared Goff. Detroit, they wanted the extra first-round pick, and the Rams tossed that in to sweeten the deal. That was the sweetener. And as we pointed out in previous episodes of the show, the general manager, Brad Holmes, wanted to do a solid, help out the team that he used to work for. He bailed out his former team, the Rams. He spent 18 seasons working for the Ram franchise. So he's like, okay, you helped me out. You got me this job. I'll take care of you. Final thought. So Jared Goff goes from the tactical genius of Sean McVay, the X's and O's savant, to the meathead of the Motor City in Dan Campbell, akin to trading in your Porsche for a beat-up diesel school bus. That's essentially what you've got as far as a coaching standpoint here. Now, it's not all bad news. This is going to add another layer of fun to watch the Lions in a schadenfreude kind of way. Losing builds character. So I would expect Detroit to continue to be very rich in football character. At least they will not be dull. In pro sports, you can be bad, and that's fine, but you can't be boring at the same time. Right? If you're going to be boring, you got to win. If you're winning and you're boring, that's fine. If you're bad and you're boring, you got a problem. And the Lions appear to be a plodding type of team, that's how they're going to be performing based on what moves they're going to make. We don't know what other moves obviously they're going to make at this point, but what are our expectations for Jared Goff in the Motor City? Jared Goff is a bridge quarterback, except he's an old rustic walking bridge with a wooden plank missing. Right, I used to go to this. I used to go to this lake, and it had these piers on the lake, and I used to love walking out in the piers and looking at the lake and the water and all that. And I remember one time there was a big storm, and a piece of wood was missing from the bridge, or not even the bridge, the pier. And you walk out there, and it's like a death trap. Your leg will fall in there, and you'd be in a lot of trouble. But I'd be genuinely surprised if Goff makes it all season as the starter. And I've got the perfect comp here for people that can't wrap their mind about how Jared Goff won a couple of playoff games, and he got to a Super Bowl, and now the Rams just got rid of him like, 2-day-old seafood that's been sitting out in the climate. This is the perfect comp for Jared Goff. He is this generation's Mark Sanchez. Remember Mark Sanchez from the Jets with Sexy Rexy as the coach, Rex Ryan, and the Jets
never heard of them.
Had a couple of big playoff wins. They got to the conference championship game, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Mark Sanchez beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in playoff games. And then the Jets, they continue to send him out there, and eventually Mark Sanchez became the disaster. He bounced around the NFL for a little bit before he exited the NFL. But Jared Goff is the same type of player. The Jets got to those big playoff games. They didn't get to a Super Bowl with Mark Sanchez, but they got to some big playoff games and won some playoff games in spite of Mark Sanchez, and or he had out-of-body experiences. And the same thing applies to Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a middling quarterback that is going to be exposed even further without Sean McVay spoon-feeding him with one hand and changing his diaper with the other hand. And even with that helicopter coaching, Jared Goff often played, and this is the indictment, he played like a coward, right? He was tentative, he was hesitant, deer in the headlights, easily flustered. And I would expect a very brief honeymoon period in Michigan. And then Jared Goff will eventually be repackaged somewhere else. This is just a stopover. This is not the final landing spot for Jared Goff. He will be with the Lions for this year and maybe part of another year, and then he will go on somewhere else. The Lions will draft some hotshot quarterback in the first round, and Jared Goff will become an afterthought. Now, fortunately, he's made enough money where he will likely never have to have another job, but if he does have to have another job, I predict he'll be selling insurance before too much longer,